What you are looking at here is an email that was sent out through the DSA, Direct Selling Association's newsletter called Direct Pulse. Ooh. Mobilize your field to fight Delaware HB 162. It's legislation that threatens the core of the direct selling model. Okay, interesting. So what this really translates to is a bill is being introduced that may hurt pyramid schemes, which is good news for everybody. If passed, this bill would impose costly, unworkable restrictions on even the most ethical companies. Weird to even say that, right? As though, like, they're not denying that there is an issue with some companies that they're aligned with in terms of like ethics, but they're saying even on the most ethical companies, it's like, shouldn't you all just be ethical if what you're doing is legit? Here's the threat. While DSA succeeded in removing the most egregious threads, the bill's remaining harmful provisions would impose unprecedented disclosure mandates not seen anywhere else in the US, create a 3-month right of recession far beyond the standard 3-day rule, require a 90% inventory buyback with no time limit, apply to all companies regardless of size, structure, or compliance history, fail to recognize the direct selling channel's existing effective self-regulation. Self-regulation, you know? This bill is not a targeted strike on bad actors. It is a blanket regulation that would punish legitimate businesses and entrepreneurs across the state. Once again, if you're all legit, why would this even need to be something you point out? Unworkable disclosure requirements. You can understand why scammers wouldn't want to have disclosure rules, because if you have to disclose relevant information about your company, like let's say something like, I don't know, the income disclosure statement showing that most people lose money, probably not going to do well for you. Scammers trying to claw to their little gold coins, you know? This legislation threatens the livelihood of thousands of ethical entrepreneurs, especially women in working families. Women in working families, of course, being the #1 victims of the scam of multi-level marketing. And of course, with their PR spin, they have to try to say that it's threatening the livelihood, when in reality, what they are doing by luring people into these scams is threatening the livelihood of women and working families, not the other way around. To get away with an atrocity, you have to paint it as the opposite. It's not enough to say that you didn't do the crime. You have to say that you actually did the opposite of the crime. In order to create the most confusion and the most disparity and conflict possible, you need to claim that not only are you not a bad guy, you're actually the goodest good guy who ever lived. Immediate action is required. Urge your Delaware-based independent distributors to send a message opposing HB 162 using our grassroots portals. Look, provide a short personal narrative. You fill in some bullshit here, and then look, the body of the message, it's already filled out for you. And then you put your information and you send it in. In order for them to keep protecting their pyramid scheme, their endless chain recruiting scheme, what do they need to do? Send out an endless chain of chain mail. You gotta love it. In big bold letters, they say, this is a direct threat to the viability of our business model. And what they mean by business model, of course, is scam. If enacted, HB 162 would set a dangerous precedent. And what they mean by dangerous precedent is actually it would remove danger away from the public, inviting similar legislation in other states. So they don't want this to pass, because if it passes in Delaware, it may proliferate into other states, which of course would be a death blow to them. Direct selling cannot allow this to stand. They're talking about this like it's a humanitarian crisis in Africa or something. They're scared of this bill and bills similar to it because it essentially means they'll be regulated out of existence. This is such a great example of what I've said many times before, which is that it doesn't matter how much lobbying money you have. It doesn't matter how much boodling and bribing you have done, and it doesn't matter how long you've been around. Slavery was legal for hundreds of years. Once the people take to the streets, once the people are calling their governor or senator or whatever, once the people are filing the FTC reports, once the people actually make their voice heard, it's a fucking wrap. The lobbyists care about putting money in the pockets of politicians so that they can do their bidding, right? So that they can get away with their poisoning the food, allowing pyramid schemes to masquerade as legitimate businesses, Israel, 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 you name it. That's what the lobbyists want. What the politicians want is to be in a position to get that money, and they have to be elected to do that. The underpinning of that is the voters. They need to have the voters. If the voters get pissed off enough about an issue, they'll change their mind, or they'll be replaced with someone who aligns with the voters. Let me remind you, Hillary Clinton, Obama, Bill Clinton, all of them opposed gay marriage. There's a video of all of them saying marriage is between a man and a woman. What I've been trying to get people to realize is that they're more powerful than they think. Yes, these companies are powerful. Yes, they have the money to sue people and try to silence them. But they can't sue us all. Okay? And the growing anti-MLM movement, I think, has culminated in this, where now some politician has got the bright idea to go, a lot of people in my jurisdiction are complaining about MLMs and saying that they're pyramid schemes. In 10 years, 20 years, when the people who are in politics are like people around my age. You know, I'm 29. All the other people who are 49 will have grown up during a time where, you know, if I did my job right, they probably have heard of MLMs and they probably know that they're scams. The people's voice is strong. It's being heard. And it's having an effect. Despite all of their lobbying dollars, they still have to resort to desperation like this, calls to action to get their member companies. They're asking Amway, they're asking Nu Skin, they're asking Herbalife, they're asking all these companies that are part of the Direct Selling Association to then ask all of their unpaid workforce, their distributors, to fill out this copy-paste form email to send to the politicians to be like, please don't take away multi-level marketing. We're independent business owners. We make money off of this. Despite all their money, they still need to grovel and plead and beg. So fast forward, what happened? It passed, which is a victory for us. Now, here's Dave Grimaldi, the actual CEO of the Direct Selling Association, taking matters into his own hands literally and filming a selfie video to talk about this.
It's Dave Grimaldi in the Delaware State House. The anti-MLM bill that we have been talking so much about just passed the Delaware House of Representatives behind that door. It passed on a vote of 27 to 11, but again, we saw this coming.
Bodied.
And the arguments against the bill were forceful and well articulated, and we'll be amplifying those. The bill now, in a timeline that is unclear, will go to the Delaware State Senate in this chamber. And DSA is going to be active, more active than ever. But we need your voice.
Look at those cold, dead eyes. If you guys are a legit business, if you've done nothing wrong, if you have nothing to prove or disprove, if everything you're doing is totally legitimate and always has been, why would you need, in the most critical moment, in your fighting hour, why would you need to rely on sob stories and propaganda and mobilizing some random, you know, single mom who lives in Delaware to show up to the fucking legislature and get on the microphone for 2 minutes and be like, please, please don't take away. This is how desperate they are. Feeble, groveling Grimaldi. I'm like Trump. Groveling Grimaldi, they call him. Desperate Dave. The bill now moves to the Senate, and that's where we must stop it. Now we need Delaware's direct sellers to stand up and speak out. The legislation directly impacts their freedom to earn, their right to choose, wrong, and their ability to build flexible, independent businesses. They don't have freedom to earn. They are in bondage in a scam money transfer scheme where they are mathematically predetermined to lose money. And the only way to circumvent those impossible odds is to be willing to lie and scam and deceive in mass. 2, they do not have a right to choose. Nobody wakes up one day and says, hey, I'm going to join a cult today. People are deceived into joining these supposed companies at their most vulnerable times. In my 6 years of studying MLM and my 10 years of familiarity with them, have never met, spoken to, or heard of one person who says they joined an MLM at a time in their life when everything was going great. 3, their ability to build flexible, independent businesses. You do not own this. You may be an independent contractor, but you are not independent, make no mistake. You are dependent on the MLM. You're dependent on them for the compensation plan. You're dependent on them for the products. You don't decide the name of it, the price of it, what it is. This is where the battle turns personal. DSA is organizing a direct seller-led response in Delaware. Entrepreneurs, again, you're not an entrepreneur, who will speak to legislators, share their stories, and reject the false premise that they are victims who need saving. The people who were in the Heaven's Gate cult, you can go watch their goodbye videos on YouTube. Every one of the people is systematically sat down in front of a camera to explain how amazing and life-changing this Heaven's Gate opportunity has been, how willingly they got involved with it, and how willingly they are going forward with their exit. What they mean by exiting is committing group mass suicide because they believe that their spirit is going to go into an alien spaceship and transcend the human plane of existence, and they're going to take their next shape. Because the leader of the cult systematically brainwashed all of them into believing this shit. And guess what happened? They all killed themselves. No person who's in a cult thinks they're in a cult. No person who's brainwashed thinks they've been brainwashed. No one has ever gone home after being recruited into a cult and went, hey, mom and dad, I joined a cult today. Nobody thinks that. People think they joined a volunteer group, a church, a political thing, a business, a multi-level marketing business. Dave Grimaldi in that video talked about our well-articulated arguments. I'm curious to hear those arguments. All I've seen so far is emotional appeals. This is where it gets personal. We need to reject the false premise that they're victims. Okay, tell me the actual meat and potatoes logic and reason why what you're doing is legitimate and why you shouldn't have these restrictions placed upon you. I can tell you my argument. Tell me yours. June 17th. What Dave Grimaldi is holding in his hand here is this. It is their propaganda one-pager about why they should oppose HB 162. HB 162, a well-intentioned bill that would harm the very people it seeks to protect. They try to take this measured, logical approach. It's a very well-intentioned bill. It's like condescending. The scammer is condescending to the politicians. It's a well-intentioned bill. We know the way you'd... It's well-intentioned, but it would harm the people it seeks to protect. Wrong! That's what you're doing, you fucking rat fuck bastard! The DSA and its members support strong consumer protections and have led efforts to make them a reality. What are their efforts? The Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Council. Oh, okay. Imagine the New York mob being like, the mob has taken great efforts to making sure that we're doing things the right way. What did we do? We got a few of the guys together and we said, you go over there and create your own self-regulatory council. And anytime one of the boys is getting out of line, we send them over to you for the bada boom, bada bing. Do you think that anyone would be like, that seems totally reasonable, mobsters. We're totally cool with you having them decide whether what you're doing is above board or not. Makes perfect sense. Funded by DSA, there you go, look no further. The Direct Selling Self-Regulatory Council, funded by DSA. Okay, so not only are we appointing and creating the supposed self-regulatory branch that's supposed to be checking us, we're paying them as well. Trust us. I'm David Grimaldi. Trust me. Oh, no, my eyes were too vibrant for that. My eyes have to be dead. Are my eyes dead enough? I don't think they'll ever be dead enough even for me to do the impression because I'm just, you know, I'm actually a real person in here. I'm Dave Grimaldi. Referred 20 plus cases to the FTC or state attorneys general. Oh, did you? Oh, thank you so much. That's like the mob saying, we tipped off the police to 1 out of every 100 of our trucks that was smuggling weapons and drugs. This is why I hate scammers more than I hate mobsters and gangsters. You see a photo of a mobster and a gangster, they've got a mean mug on their face, they've got a scar. You look at a mobster and you know they're a mobster. I respect that. I respect a piece of shit telling me he's a piece of shit. What I don't respect is the deception and the fucking balls to smile in my face while you're trying to literally scam me. Fuck you. Fuck you. Look, even if it fails in the Senate, this won't be the last time. I think this is how it's gonna happen. We'll see the slow burn of the anti-MLM movement and sentiment continue to grow. We'll see more videos continue to be made. We'll see more lawsuits get initiated against creators like me and beaten by creators like me. As old people and old politicians and old judges die, new judges, new politicians, new congresspeople, new senators, etc. will come about and they will introduce legislation that opposes these scammers and fraudsters until eventually MLM is either outlawed completely or regulated out of existence, or the third option, which I really like, which is that everyone just knows these fucking things are bullshit and they just stop giving their money to it and they just cease to exist because it's no longer viable. Although that's going to be a hard sell because the pyramid scheme is one of the most compelling and alluring promises ever. And they've managed to gloss it up so effectively that it's difficult to see through the smoke and mirrors, but it is what it is.